Chapter 1, The Mark of Prophecy. A piercing wind howled across the rust-colored dunes of Tarnus 4, scattering fine grains of sand into the air. Arcus pulled his rough-spun cloak tighter, shielding his face from the stinging assault. Years in Tarnus's harsh climate had hardened him, but winds like these could strip flesh down to the bone. As the lone figure trekked through the sea of dunes, the mining settlement of Anchorhead came into view on the horizon. Rows of squat, prefab shelters huddled around the towering edifice of a soil refinery. It was an outpost for those tough or desperate enough to endure Tarnus's barren wastes while extracting meager resources for the core worlds. Approaching Anchorhead's main gate, Arcus lowered his hood, revealing his rugged features and the unusual scar that cleaved his left cheek. It had earned him the nickname Scarside among the locals. The mark had been with him since childhood, though its origin remained a mystery. The guard at the entrance nodded. Back from another fruitless hunt, Scarside, Arcus grumbled under his breath as he passed into Anchorhead's dusty streets. He survived by scouring the desert for valuable minerals, but pickings had been slim of late. If his luck didn't change he'd have to take more drastic measures to settle his debts with Azric, Anchorhead's grubby excuse for a mayor. As Arcus made his way to the boisterous watering hole where prospectors gathered, he noticed new faces and furtive activity. Off-worlders were descending in numbers on Anchorhead, which was unusual. Their stealthy movements and cloaked figures suggested they weren't here for mining opportunities. Inside the bar, Arcus spotted Osric's hulking enforcers, squeezing patrons for protection fees. The mayor had the settlement under his thumb. Arcus kept his head down, not wanting to attract notice. He only wanted a drink before retreating to his shelter. "Welcome, Scarside. Join us for a drink," Azric called out, his ochre mustache splitting into a crooked grin. Arcus hesitated before joining the mayor's table. Azric's moods were as mercurial as Tarnus's winds. "An interesting time for Anchorhead. These new visitors portend a profitable future," Azric said, eyes glinting greedily. Arcus doubted that future had room for rugged independents like himself. He only hoped he could settle his debts and be gone before Azric's next shakedown. "We'll all get what's coming to us, good or ill," Arcus replied cryptically, tracing a finger across his scar. The mayor's smile faded a fraction. Their conversation was interrupted by the crash of breaking glass as two newcomers tumbled into the bar, locked in combat. Patrons shouted and scrambled out of the way. Azric's men moved to break up the fight, but hesitated when they glimpsed strange glyphs on the combatants' armor. "Enough!" boomed a voice by the doorway. A towering figure draped in dark robes stood there, flanked by more men bearing the same cryptic markings. The brawlers separated, bowing their heads. "We are all allies in the Coalition's great endeavor," the robed figure said. Murmurs rippled through the bar at the unknown name. After a pause, he continued, "But perhaps a demonstration is in order." At an unspoken signal, one of his agents activated a device that bathed the room in light. When the flash faded, two of Osric's men had been reduced to smoldering piles of ash. Cries of alarm erupted, but no one dared retaliate. The mayor sat frozen, hands gripping his chair. Arcus remained very still, assessing the robed man with new wariness. The figure's next words were edged with menace. "Tarnus 4 will serve our purpose. Oppose us at your peril." With that, the agents filed out after their leader. A shocked silence lingered in their wake. Then Azric erupted. "Defilers! I'll bury them in the waste for this outrage." He turned to Arcus with a wild look. "As for you, this changes nothing. Your debts will be paid." Arcus kept his face impassive as he left, but his mind churned with questions. Who were these Coalition invaders? What unknown purpose brought them here? And how could he escape Anchorhead before getting caught up in the deadly games of powerful men? The answers eluded him as he trudged towards his meager shelter. A fitful night's rest did little to ease his mood. He rose before Anchorhead's twin suns crested the horizon, determined to flee into the wastes. If he was lucky, he could avoid Azric's thugs and disappear. Loading his gear onto a battered speeder bike, Arcus sped away as the suns rose. He did not see the cloaked figures watching from the shadows or the drone that trailed him from the air. Hours later, Arcus cut the bike's engines and dismounted in a secluded canyon far from Anchorhead. This area was largely uncharted, but he knew the jumble of ravines and caverns from his youth. If luck was on his side, he might find a valuable mineral deposit here. Descending into the cool darkness of the canyon, Arcus traversed a winding route. His instincts told him he was close. The cave walls gradually changed from rusty red sandstone to a smooth, glass-like surface. He was entering a meteor impact zone, the conditions needed for rare minerals. Finding a promontory that jutted out over a yawning abyss, Arcus lowered himself down. His boots found purchase on a narrow ledge just below the outcropping. Running his hand along the cave wall, he came to an odd triangular indentation. Something winked inside. Arcus toggled his shoulder lamp to boost the light. A gasp escaped him. Nestled in the crevice was an iridescent polyhedral crystal shot through with angled facets and strange symbols. Arcus had prospected many exotic minerals, but never seen anything like this. As he reached out, compelled by its hypnotic glimmer, a sharp crack resounded through the cavern. The outcroppings shuddered under an explosion. Debris rained down as Arcus hugged the cavern wall. Far above, he glimpsed figures peering over the ledge. Coalition agents. They must have tracked him somehow. Frantically working with his tools, Arcus pried the crystal free and stowed it in his pack. He began ascending, seeking crevices and handholds to escape the Coalition's bombardment. Another blast shook the canyon, causing Arcus to lose his grip. Helplessly, he fell, vanishing into the abyss's lightless depths. With a painful wrench, Arcus's fall was broken by a second ledge concealed in the darkness. Lying stunned, he became aware of an eerie blue glow pulsing from his pack. The crystal. As Arcus recovered his wits, one thought overrode all others. Somehow, he had to keep this treasure out of the Coalition's hands. Chapter 2. The Gathering Forces. Arcus regained consciousness slowly, his body aching from the fall. The canyon was silent, aside from the occasional skitter of loose rock. Using the light of the glowing crystal, he assessed himself, relieved to find no broken bones. The Coalition must believe their quarry lost in the abyss. Securing his pack, Arcus estimated he had dropped 50 meters or more into lightless depths. He couldn't climb back out, but the winding nature of canyons sometimes allowed passage between levels. He set off into the gloom, one hand trailing the wall. Hours of fruitless searching brought Arcus no closer to escaping the canyon. Finally, he squeezed through a gap, and the cave opened up into a spacious cavern. Its floor was etched with intricate circular patterns that glimmered faintly. Arcus froze. Only one thing could create those whorls: Viridian glyphs. Legends floated around the fringes of the galaxy about the Viridians, an ancient race steeped in esoteric powers and advanced technology. But Arcus had never believed the myths until now. This cavern and its contents argued otherwise. Approaching the center, Arcus swept dust off a metallic pedestal to reveal more alien markings. They surrounded a hollow depression the exact size and shape of the crystal in his pack. Hardly daring to believe it, Arcus placed the gem into the slot. It flared brightly, bathing the cavern in actinic light. A deep hum reverberated through the stone as hidden mechanisms awakened for the first time in eons. A glowing aperture dilated open nearby. A portal. Arcus hurried through, unsure of where it led, only certain it was better than the Coalition's grip. Passing the portal's boundary, Arcus staggered. His senses swam from the assault of stimuli. Harsh sunlight, vigorous vegetation, and exotic bird calls indicative of a vibrant biosphere. Regaining his bearings, Arcus gaped at his impossible surroundings. Lush tropical forests ringed the clearing, replacing the arid canyons of Tarnus 4. The portal had flung him across the stars to the Viridian homeworld itself. Warily, Arcus removed the crystal from a duplicate pedestal to close the gateway. He had no wish to lead danger to this paradise, though now he was trapped, unable to return to the mining colony or anywhere familiar. Uncertain where to turn, Arcus set off towards a thin plume of smoke rising above the jungle. He stumbled through dense undergrowth until the trees thinned, revealing a small settlement of simple earthen dwellings. Viridian folk in rough-woven garb paused to study the strange visitor. An elder Viridian approached, his violet skin creased with age. You bear the mark of prophecy. Be welcome, for you have arrived at a pivotal hour. Prophecy? Arcus thought fast. If these people viewed his scar and sudden appearance as part of some sacred portent, it could aid his cause. While wary of Azric's cronies, the unassuming villagers seemed free of guile. I felt called here, Arcus said. That much was true. But I seek wisdom. Share with me your legends that I might understand my supposed destiny. The elder inclined his head. Come, and we will reveal what knowledge we possess and perhaps glimpse the purpose your arrival portends. After a sparse but hearty meal, Arcus listened with growing unease as the elder related fragments of Viridian prophecy. They told of a chosen bear Sosterver of the Mark, destined to wield ancient powers for good or ill, forever altering the fates of both their peoples. Like it or not, Arcus now appeared bound to that fate. Discussion was cut short by panicked shouts. Villagers fled into huts as coalition ships screamed overhead, bombardment sizzling the settlement's edges. They had tracked him somehow, Arcus realized bleakly. Viridian abilities could not stand against the Syndicate's might. Arcus faced a terrible choice. Keep hiding here and bring destruction to innocents, or take the fight back to the coalition. The prophecy left unclear if he could evade destiny's snare or forge his own path. But the time for hiding was past. Squaring his shoulders, Arcus turned to the elder. Your people sheltered me. Now I must draw danger from your doorstep. But I won't stand alone against them. Hope flickered in the elder's eyes. What do you propose, Chosen One? Arcus headed for the tree line. First, we visit some old contacts from Anchorhead and convince them to stand together. Then we plan a little surprise ambush for my coalition friends. They're about to learn how fierce the natives of Tarnus can be. The jungle seemed to hold its breath as two unlikely allies set forth into the gathering darkness. Chapter 3. Whispers in the Void. The Viridian homeworld of Azureus lived up to its name. Endless blue seas and verdant forests cloaking its curved horizon. Arcus tried to relax as the starcraft entered orbit, but tension coiled within him. He was an interloper in this alien realm that considered him a foretold savior. His rough minor allies shifted uneasily in the passenger bay, intimidated by their surroundings. Their assistants ambushing the coalition syndicate had opened an opportunity to appeal to the Viridians for aid. Now Arcus hoped the advanced race would become allies rather than overlords. The starcraft landed gracefully on a platform protruding from the forest canopy. Arcus walked down the ramp, glancing up at the twin suns that bathed Azurus in perpetual daylight. Emerald leaves shivered, though no wind stirred them. Whispers swirled at the edge of perception, setting Arcus's teeth on edge. A delegation approached, their violet skin and elaborate robes marking them as Viridian nobility. The apparent leader wore a diadem inset with glittering crystals. Arcus realized with a jolt they were communicating psychically without words. Our prognosticators foresaw your arrival. You are expected in the capital. The eerie mind speech echoed directly in Arcus's thoughts. Swallowing his misgivings, he focused on projecting a response. I am grateful for your welcome. Together we can oppose the darkness threatening our worlds. The diademed Viridian inclined his head. Come, there is much to reveal. As they traveled through the dense jungle, Arcus sensed his allies' unease. The Viridians employed sophisticated organic technology melded seamlessly with nature. Dwellings shaped from adaptive plant tissues. Conveyances propelled by magnetic forces. Even their computers were synaptic crystals attuned to thought. The susurrating whispering never fully abated. Arcus wondered if it was the voice of the planet itself. Everything here was imbued with a sense of being alive. It unnerved his rationally trained miner's instincts. Arriving at the capital, an elegant tiered city crafted of synthwood and crystal, they were ushered into an opulent hall. Luminescent orbs provided soft light. Carvings lining the walls depicted Viridian history and prophecies. Arcus's scar prickled as his gaze fell upon a carving of a figure bearing the same mark. So the legends held truth. But did he have any choice, or was he doomed to play out a prescribed role? The diademed leader turned to him solemnly. The shard you bear awakened more than a gateway. It resonates with you. and now with us all, your coming was foretold. Arcus sensed expectancy ringing in the sutras. They waited for him to reveal the artifact's purpose. But he had no insight to offer. Arcus was merely a rough frontiersman molded by the unforgiving wastes of Tarnus. He was no savior. Sensing his hesitation, the leader continued. The shard contains remnants of our past when Viridian and humanity were as one. It responds to your genetic lineage. The key will unlock Akasha, granting unity of mind, power to resist darkness, or unleash it. Arcus reeled at the revelation. The crystal artifact was a storage vessel holding ancestral memories and psychic abilities, power that could unite galaxies or subjugate them. And these whispers wanted him to access it, whether he desired it or not. Your doubts sting, yet they speak well of your character, the leader soothed. We only wish balance, but other factions may not be so wise. Indeed, Arcus thought grimly, the coalition hounded him relentlessly, obsessed with seizing the shard for their own ends. Its power in their hands would be catastrophic. Could he remain neutral, or was he fated to champion one faction over another? For now, he needed the Viridians' aid too desperately to refuse. But afterward, he yearned to forge his own path. Destiny or not, the choice must remain his own. Gathering his resolve, Arcus broadcast his assent. I will seek Akasha, not for power but knowledge that may defeat the darkness. A susurrant swell echoed his declaration. Now all futures lay poised on the razor's edge of his decision. The crystal shard gleamed expectantly within his pack as whispers echoes through the void. Chapter 4, The Siege of Echoes. A deafening explosion shattered the pre-dawn quiet as Arcus burst from sleep. Around him, Viridians streamed from dwellings in controlled panic as more blasts erupted throughout the capital. The coalition had come, their preemptive strike turning prophecy to ash. Leaping from his organic hammock, Arcus raced to a vantage point overlooking the capital. Through the jungle canopy, he glimpsed the orbiting syndicate fleet, raining pulses of Viridian fire on the city. The landscape writhed as swarms of assault craft descended through the atmosphere. The Viridians had grown complacent in their Eden, leaving themselves vulnerable. Their psychic abilities could not withstand technology honed for warfare. But Arcus knew how to fight dirty. He reached out with his thoughts, sending urgency. Defensive positions. Evacuate non-combatants. We make our stand here. Viridian forces responded swiftly, years of peace overridden by ancestral reflexes. Warriors took up concealed positions on the city's ring tiers, using the natural terrain for cover. Mobile artillery dissolved back into the jungles, ready to ambush. High above, Arcus spotted a wing of coalition fighters swooping in. He leaned around a pylon, targeting the lead craft with his customized rifle. The plasma bolt seared a smoking hole through the cockpit, sending the fighters spiraling in flames. The rest scattered from his unexpected riposte. Let's give these void buzzards a wake-up call, Arcus muttered to his crack-shot Viridian comrades. Their answering feral grins heartened him. The coalition had expected panic prey. Instead, their advance stalled against ferocious guerrilla resistance. Viridian divisions harried the enemy's flanks, while Arcus's snipers targeted officers and demolished artillery. For now, the element of surprise held the siege at bay, but Arcus knew it was only a matter of time. As sunset stained the sky crimson, he gazed out at fires blooming across the city's outskirts, where the defensive line was faltering. A dark blossom of grief opened within him. The coalition would see this paradise erased, unless he took the fight to them. Bring our remaining long-range artillery to the central pyramid, Arcus broadcast to the commanders. We will show the enemy our true strength. Under the pyramid lay the Chamber of Akasha, which amplified psychic abilities 1,000-fold. If he could tap its power, they might rout the invading fleet. But opening his mind to Akasha meant surrendering himself utterly. As artillery trains rumbled into position surrounding the pyramid, Arcus descended into purple-tinged darkness. Every step carried him deeper into the void of his own being. At the chamber entrance, Arcus unslung his pack and clutched the shard, its facets reflecting his scarred face. Omens and portents. He feared what deeper truth might await. Stepping inside, sound fled, leaving only thundering silence. Slowly, Arcus lifted the crystal to the central dais. With an audible click, it settled into alignment, radiance igniting within until Arcus squinted against the brilliance. His scar blazed, fire and ice fused. A whispered symphony of psyches enfolded him, seducing him to merge into its tide. Millennia of Viridian memories and power, the collective unconscious itself. His fragile identity began dissolving. No! Arcus wrenched himself back. He had come for allies, not to be subsumed. Reaching with iron will, he navigated the psychic deluge, retaining a kernel of self. Slowly the roar calmed to a susurrus once more. Now we end this. Opening his eyes, Arcus saw through 1,000 more. His consciousness expanded tenfold, bolstered by Akasha's transcendent might. He tracked every invader, saw their intentions crystallize, and he countered. In orbit, coalition warships suddenly listed and drifted, crews slumping lifeless over consoles as Viridian psychic assault shut down motor functions. Down on the surface, artillery cannons turned and erupted in point-blank fury, decimating the weakened advance forces. Arcus kept his focus on the armada. Dragging his hands apart, he exerted Akasha's power. In the void, crumplers bloomed like lethal flowers. Metal screamed as ships were rent by irresistible psychic forces. Escape pods spewed away from the chaos, only to be seized by Viridian tractor beams. On the ground, the few remaining invaders threw down their weapons in surrender. But Arcus gave no quarter. The threat must be erased root and branch. Ships spun out of control, fusion reactors overloading. In one cataclysmic moment, the armada disintegrated between his palms. Silence fell, broken only by the crackle of spreading fires. The psychic backlash hit Arcus, driving him to his knees with nosebleed pouring down his face. But his gambit had paid off. The siege was broken at a terrible cost. Coalition and Viridian casualties alike. Weary defenders gathered before the pyramid, shocked by the armada's annihilation. They looked upon him with awe and fear. Arcus regarded his trembling hands, grappling with how easily absolute power could corrupt. With Akasha amplifying his choices, the fate of civilizations rested in his scarred hands alone. The Viridian leader appeared, face grave as he surveyed the devastation. You have fulfilled the prophecy, yet prevented our destruction. We are in your debt. Arcus shook his head firmly as he sealed away the crystal shard. I only did what was needed in desperate times. Akasha's power is too dangerous to wield alone. Guard it well and let our worlds rebuild together. The elder inclined his head in respect. Wise words, though some may seek Akasha's power for conquest. Guard yourself, chosen one, for this victory marks you. Glancing at the horizon's funeral pyres, Arcus felt the burden settle heavier upon his shoulders. He had proven capable of saving or destroying worlds, and until the coalition was fully dismantled, he had become the nexus of Viridian hopes and enemy fears alike. For now, he could only shore up Azurus' defenses and send discreet allies to undermine the Syndicate. But another clash inexorably approached. When it came, Arcus knew he must ready himself both physically and spiritually. Any ambitions of forging his own path seemed distant as destiny's implacable tide pulled him into its depths. The silence held both promise and foreboding. Chapter 5. The Scar's Legacy. In the months following the Siege of Echoes, an uneasy peace settled over Azurius. Viridian forces secured their homeworld's orbit with defense platforms to deter future invasion. Meanwhile, Arcus focused on rooting out the coalition's scattered remnants before they could regroup. He said little of the visions granted by tapping Akasha, of soaring above a gleaming interspecies utopia, the Viridian collective mind enveloping humanity in loving embrace, but also of flames engulfing opposition until all bowed before psychic supremacy. Both futures now hinged upon his choices. Retreating to a cliffside overlook, Arcus gazed out at Azurius' unspoiled beauty. This world deserved preservation, as did the freedom and dignity of all sentient beings. If he continued down destiny's prescribed path, manipulating events even with good intent, where would it end? The road to ruin was paved with rationalized misdeeds, committed in the name of the greater good. Since merging his mind with Akasha, Arcus sensed the Viridian hive mind, a subtle undercurrent of will and anticipation. They trusted in his role as savior, But if he deviated from prophecy's constraints, their response could not be predicted. His actions threatened to either strengthen unity between their races or sow discord that could span generations. The galaxy balanced on a knife's edge between two starkly contrasting futures. Chosen one, you wander alone. Arcus turned to see the Viridian leader approaching slowly, as if not to startle volatile prey. He waved the elder to join him. Solitude offers clarity, though answers remain elusive. The leader nodded. You doubt the prophecy's call. Seek your own path beyond destiny's constraints. It is natural, yet perilous. Peril cuts both ways, Arcus replied. Blind obedience to any decree can lead deeply astray, even if justified as for the greater good. I no longer know if prophecy can be trusted. To embrace destiny is to sacrifice freedom. Rejection bears its own consequences. The elder's violet eyes became thoughtful. Prophecy promises hope of unity between our kindred races, but true unity cannot be imposed from without or within. Arcus studied his scarred hand, calloused by hardship and conflict. For that dream to become reality, first there must be understanding between us, common ground on which to build trust. But how to clear away the past divisions and suspicions? The life of an individual concedes such change if their choices stand firm in the face of storm winds. The Viridian leader turned a piercing gaze on Arcus. Your path was ever yours to choose. Prophecy promised only possibility. Possibility. As a miner, Arcus had prized the inestimable potential value hidden within a rough, unpromising surface. Each sentient being likewise harbored untold gifts. But the same was true of disasters. My people shall not constrain your actions, the leader continued solemnly. In time, your scar's true legacy may become clear. Your people, Arcus noted. By his own words, the elder indicated the Viridian mind could not yet accept autonomy. Patience and courage were paramount. I understand. Arcus extended his hand, Scar twisting his mouth into a wry grin as they clasped arms. Unity founded on individual growth becomes true strength. Leaving the Viridian settlement, Arcus wandered into desert canyons, half hoping to find hidden answers etched in stone. The solitude granted space to center himself beyond prophecies. But on the horizon, forces were converging once more. A hijacked coalition starship blasted out of hyperspace, trailing a wake of unanswered questions. Quickly, Arcus assembled an intercept squad, his scar tingling with the certainty that this heralded a climactic convergence. Boarding the errant vessel, Arcus's team swept through deserted corridors with weapons ready. The ship appeared completely unmanned. Power still hummed from the reactors, guidance systems locked onto Azraeus. A ghost ship aimed straight at their sanctuary. Scarside! Arcus whirled, rifle leveled. From the shadows of the bridge emerged a hulking, familiar form. Azric! His eyes narrowed. The former crime lord looked haggard, his ostentatious garb traded for nondescript spacer coveralls. But the hungry gleam in his eyes remained the same. What game are you playing? Arcus demanded. Around him, the Viridian team tensed. Azric raised his hands in a pacifying gesture. The only game left, survival. His scarred mouth twisted into a mocking grin. While you've been playing exalted savior, everything has collapsed. The coalition fleet lies in ruins. Syndicate infighting has shattered any semblance of order. And so the rats seek sanctuary, Arcus concluded grimly. We knew you were the only one who might grant it after what happened here. Behind his sneer, Arcus glimpsed the desperation of a creature driven into a corner. But he had no sympathy for Azric's plight. On Tarnus 4, the mayor had embodied everything corrupt in a fractured society. You led the hunt for me there. Now you dare ask my aid? Arcus spoke quietly, but the ship's metal bulkheads thrummed with his restraint. I should eject you into the cold to suffocate. Azric's jaw tightened, but he swallowed back a retort. When he responded, it was with uncharacteristic calm. Revenge can wait. I'm not your enemy this day. We discovered something you must see. He gestured to view screens displaying streams of data, a backdoor into Coalition classified archives. It reveals why they coveted Tarnus in what your scar signifies. Arcus weighed his choices. Truth still eluded him regarding the Scar's legacy and its connection to both their species' fates. Perhaps necessary answers waited within enemy secrets. He nodded to Azric, gesturing him to proceed but keeping weapons ready. With a few taps, Azric accessed archives and summoned up footage. Grainy security video showed lab technicians moving around a tank where a human child floated unconscious. Zooming in, Arcus saw the boy bore a fresh scar on his left cheek. With a chill, he touched his own face. "They've been seeking you for years," Azric rasped, "all based on old Viridian genetic experiments. They engineered enhanced hybrid subjects, starting on Tarnus, trying to activate latent abilities. You were the first success." Arcus stared at the screen, where a surgeon was carefully scarring the sedated boy. The video jumped, showing the child older, subjected to trials measuring biotic abilities. He focused those powers escaping custody, parameters going haywire as the lab burned around him. "After you vanished into the wastes, they covered it up." Azric's eyes gleamed, but they never stopped hunting their prize experiment. Shaking free of his shock, Arcus strengthened mental barriers against the psychic undercurrent. This changed nothing. His past did not define him, whatever intentions lay behind the scar. Turning to Azric, Arcus spoke firmly. "We all seek meaning for our existence, but it must come from within, not any brand or history forced upon us." He placed his palm gently on the console, feeling potential within the station's technology and within flawed, frightened beings. This discovery changed nothing, and yet it had revealed a crucial step in his path. The scar and its legacy waited not behind, but ahead. "I forgive the past's shadows," Arcus said quietly. Around him, Viridians lowered their weapons and bowed their heads, accepting his judgment. He left Azric staring after him in brooding silence. His team followed Arcus to the shuttle bay, where he activated a remote command on his wristcom, transmitted earlier via their psychic link. Explosions chain-reacted through the station's reactor, tearing the Coalition vessel apart in a silent white flare. "Free choice endures beyond any prophecy," Arcus told his people, letting old preconceptions burn away in the void. "This is only history, shadow without substance. Our future awaits." One cycle later, Arcus stood before the Viridian Council, arrayed majestically within the pyramid's soaring central chamber. "By your actions, judgment, and wisdom, you fulfill the prophecy of unity. You have forged understanding between our peoples. Therefore, let the crystal shard's legacy be bestowed with our blessing." Reverently, they transferred the crystal pendant to Arcus on a simple cord. Bowing his head, he accepted the burden and gift of its significance. Infinite potential glimmered within finite facets. Turning to face gathered humans and Viridians alike, Arcus lifted the pendant for all to see. "May this stand as our new covenant of peace between all free worlds, and let my scar ever remind us how labels and divisions fade before our shared bonds of hope." Thunderous applause greeted his words. But even as joyous celebrations unfolded on Azurus, Arcus sensed a bittersweet undercurrent beneath the elder Viridian leader's smile. Not all embraced this new era of unity through diversity. Dangerous currents still churned beneath calm surface waters. In the days that followed, hundreds of Viridians and humans gathered to see the artifact return to its canyon pedestal. This time, when Arcus placed the crystal within, a seamless tone chimed through the chamber. The shard had found its true home. "So your quest ends where it began, as such journeys often do," spoke a familiar voice. Arcus turned to see the Viridian elder approach and bowed his head in respect. "One path ends, yet ahead stretch endless new horizons," he replied with a smile. The leader's expression grew serious. "You sense the discord your reforms have sown?" At Arcus's nod, he continued. "Not all welcome this intermingling. The council moves to silence dangerous voices who would turn us from unity back to division and dominance." Unease stirred in Arcus's chest. He chose his next words carefully. "Change nurtures strife before deeper understanding takes root. Patience allows wisdom to flourish." "Indeed. Thus we shall see your counsel bears wisdom's fruit in time." The elder placed both hands on Arcus's shoulders. Until such season arrives, guide your people well, First Speaker. The prophecy is fulfilled. Watching the elder depart, Arcus pondered the title granted him and the unintended irony in those final words. The prophecy's promises had been fulfilled and overturned simultaneously. In seeking change guided by decree and destiny, he had come full circle back to the sanctity of freedom and diversity. Gazing out at the multi-species gathering below, Arcus allowed himself an ember of hope. From endings, new beginnings emerged. Though discord crept at civilization's periphery, here stood living proof that unified vision could inspire people to transcend themselves, if called by truth rather than power or prophecy. Turning his back on the canyon of ghosts, Arcus walked joyfully into the light of possibility's new dawn.